This program was first broadcast on Canterbury's access media station, Plains FM, and was made with the assistance of New Zealand On Air.
It's time for Emergence News on Plains FM 96.9, Citizen-Made Radio.
Welcome to Emergence News. My name is Nigel, and this is a program about the externalization of the spiritual hierarchy and Maitreya, the head of the spiritual hierarchy. And joining me in the studio to discuss this and many subjects today are John and Peter. Hi guys, welcome John.
Hello.
Welcome
Hi,
Peter.
Nigel. Hi.
Now on the last program we did a bit of thinking, and we realised once we'd finished recording that program that it requires a follow-up because it brings up so many questions regarding three really huge topics: global governance, why am I here, and of course healing by voltage was absolutely fascinating. And of course your thoughts on Gaza last time as well, Peter. And that got me thinking about Jeffrey Sachs. He's a professor of sustainable development and he's a professor of health policy and management at Columbia University. He's also worked for the White House in the past, John?
We've referenced him a number of times. Share International often pick up really good articles that Dr. Jeffrey Sachs has done. So, yeah, he's someone we've spoken about before. Yeah, well,
on the last program, Peter talked about the Gaza situation and how foreign it is to us guys, or us people, those sections of humanity that are sensitive. We feel it quite deeply and it upsets us, and we all want to know what can we do about it. Well, I decided to have a look at an address to religious leaders. It was a pre-COP28 Faith Leaders Summit at Abu Dhabi back in November last year. Jeffrey Sachs. And I've just taken a couple of excerpts out of his speech, which I think are particularly relevant to what you were talking about on the last program, Peter. He says we are faced with the greatest trial of humanity to live peacefully and sustainably on a crowded and interconnected planet. We are currently failing that trial. The world is aflame in wars. He says the politicians of powerful nations, especially my own, he's referring to America, have dragged us into wars that the people do not want and have delayed action against climate change to the point where climate change endangers our survival. Through their relentless corruption, the politicians have squandered the toil of billions of people. Why do they do so? The answers are as ancient as they are relevant today. The first sin, he lists a number of sins here. The first sin is arrogance. The second sin is greed. Many of our wars are about the pursuit of money. It's the biggest industry on the planet, isn't it, John?
Right.
Yet the wars destroy vastly more wealth than could ever be garnered by conquest. The third sin is corruption. The fourth sin is heresy. Politicians listen to false prophets who proclaim their nations to be the natural rulers over others. Who told President Biden that the US is the indispensable country? It is not. It is one country among 193 nations. It is a mere 4.1% of the world's population.
Right.
That's just putting it into perspective, isn't it?
Yeah. I love this guy. He's so great.
It's good stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
He says the war in Ukraine can and will stop when the US finally stops trying to expand NATO into Ukraine and instead engages directly with Russia on pressing issues of mutual security, including renewed diplomacy for nuclear disarmament. World public opinion. This is what's relevant about the Gaza conflict. World public opinion overwhelmingly demands peace. You, the world religious leaders, demand peace and pray for peace. The United Nations member states overwhelmingly demand peace, even though Israel and the United States have so far ignored the calls by the vast majority of UN member states for a ceasefire and for a two-state solution to the Israel-Palestine conflict. When the rest of the world is united for peace, as it is, the United States and Israel will have to listen to the head call and to heed the call by humanity. When the rest of the world is united for peace, as it is, the United States and Israel will be forced to. They will have to listen and to heed the call by the rest of humanity. Let the new dialogue start this very day today, here in this assembly of religious leaders and in the halls of the United Nations. Let us tell world leaders clearly, you must do your job to promote the common good. He's talking the same language as us, guys. Mm-hmm. Let us also be clear that there is no indispensable country. There is only indispensable justice. And with justice, all countries are indispensable. What do you make of that?
Very powerful.
Yeah. I've got to wonder about his point of evolution. He's written some amazing stuff that actually the Share International magazine often
publishes, don't they?
And he's very much in line with that concept of sharing, of justice and peace that Maitreya, Benjamin Cream talk about. So he is one of the intellectual leaders on this planet, completely relevant for the issues we face today.
I hope he attends that Summit of the Future conference later this year.
Yeah, I just as I said last week.
Well, they need somebody.
I just despair that there are the ideas and the intellect present on this planet. It's just that the powerful have an agenda that doesn't include intelligence.
Yeah, and it has loud voices.
And also, Peter, you said last week about a great evil. And I've said many times that evil on this planet, and this is for my Christian friends, doesn't have red fiery skin, horns protruding out of the head, and carry a large spear. Evil on this planet comes in a corporate suit, carrying a briefcase and driving a limousine. That it's the wealth and greed and stupidity that are the problems on this planet.
And we've got a dozen, maybe 2 dozen, 3 dozen individuals on this planet that are basically holding in their bank accounts 90% of the wealth of the world.
Yep.
So they are disproportionately influential to the billions of people that are currently living on Earth.
Common good.
Yeah. Some figures we talked about a while ago, 1% of the population in America controls 50% of that nation's wealth. So currently, they love things the way they are.
They don't want change.
Right? Oligarchy, and I urge all of our listeners to look up the word oligarchy. We don't live in a democratic planet. We live in a planet managed under a system of oligarchy. The very few controlling the majority.
And a lot of our politicians use the word democracy, but it's
smoke and mirrors.
It is, actually.
It doesn't exist.
Speaking of peace, I noticed an interesting quote by Maria Montessori, and she was a high degree initiate, wasn't she, in the late 1800s. Everyone talks about peace, she says, but no one teaches peace. In this world, you are educated for competition, and competition is the beginning of every war. She was a perceptive woman. When humanity begins to educate themselves for cooperation and to offer each other solidarity, that day will be the beginning of educating our children for peace.
Mothers don't want to send their sons and daughters to war. But we have a world leadership that's dominated by males, male energy. And I think if we had more female leadership, that would be one of the ways to address war. Mothers don't want to send their children off to war.
Well, the female leadership, if you think about the Scandinavian countries, think about New Zealand, there are a few key countries around the world where there at least females in politics, women in politics, is starting to redress that imbalance. I remember when we were all children, the New Zealand Parliament, I don't think it was until the late 60s, early 70s, there was a lone woman in Parliament, Terracotta Sullivan.
Oh, yes, that's right.
I think she was one of the first, and she won a Maori seat. And then we had increasing numbers of women in Parliament during the 70s, and it was not made easy for them to survive.
Not at all. I still don't think it is.
And it's not just the colleagues in Parliament; it's the journalists. You know, there's an attitude that makes it incredibly challenging and difficult.
It's the deep misogyny that runs through New Zealand, racism and misogyny. So. What else we're going to talk about today, guys?
Well, we were looking, last time you looked at why am I here?
Yes.
Now, if you think about it, that is a question that has plagued humanity for eons. Why are we here? And unless you've got a sense of a big picture, it's a very difficult question to answer.
It's one of the platforms of Maitreya's teachings that Benjamin Creme has enunciated so well. Who am I? And that we need to start asking ourselves, who am I?
We're not just the physical vehicle that is walking upon this planet.
I am not
There's
my
more to
car.
us.
I am not the house I own. I am not where I holiday. I'm certainly not the persona I project on social media. Who am I? That is the question we need to be asking ourselves, because when you start to pick away at who am I, then why am I here comes next. So, and that's why this Maitreya's teaching of honesty, sincerity and detachment is so brilliant, because once you start with that personal honesty, that mental honesty, that who am I starts to appear in your mind, in your process.
It starts to reveal itself.
Our good friend from the States who we were talking about last night, whose name escapes me, was a counsellor. We had him on the program.
Dick Larson.
He, in his whole counselling career, and he dealt with addictions and families of addicts, his cavalry charge command is, the truth will set you free. And that starts with honesty, sincerity and detachment.
And of course, the great spiritual leaders over many centuries have referred to that word detachment regularly.
Constantly. It's the Eastern kind of philosophy, isn't it? And Krishnamurti sums it up so well. His term is freedom from the known, right? If you have freedom from the known, you're not driven by your conditioning. And detachment is freedom from your conditioning. And that is why this honesty, sincerity, and detachment just transcends all philosophies.
If you study nothing else.
Yes, practice that.
Just practice that in your life, things will change. Okay, so when we're talking about depression and mental health issues, Peter, when you think about people who have asked the question, who am I? Why am I here? You begin to gain, as John was just alluding to, a sense of purpose in your life.
That's right.
Can you remember how old you were when you decided to pursue a spiritual direction in your life?
I was brought up in the Anglican Church, and I was even an altar boy at one stage. But it wasn't until I got to New Guinea, really, where I had time on my hands to do meditation and that sort of thing. Joined the Rosicrucians, and it became very much a very real thing for me. And I just came across something in this latest Share International here. It's called The Plan, and it's exactly what we're talking about, and it's by the Master through Benjamin Creme. The plan of which I speak embodies the purposes of the one we call God, and focuses his intention for all the kingdoms of creation. No one can know in its entirety the manifold aspects of this blueprint of evolution, but the broad outlines at least have long been the concern and privileged service of the spiritual hierarchy under the leadership of the Christ. With the many aspects of this plan they daily work, seeking to inspire through humanity the gradual fulfillment. The time has come for humanity to enter more deeply into a knowledge of the plan, and thus in full consciousness to evolve according to the will of God, where man's will and God's will coincide. We will proceed normally and well. Where his congruence is absent, man will be afflicted by all manner of ills, each of its own engendering. Thus it truly can be said that man creates his own destiny. His halters and fears are his own, his suffering self-made. Thus does the plan proceed through mutation and change, bringing all gradually to the envisaged goal. Whenever men turn their eyes today, they can witness this happening. The paroxysm of change engulfs the world. The task of watching brotherhood is to oversee these changes and contain them lawfully within the confines of the plan. Thus do the masters work, relating the plan to the possibilities presented by men. Each step towards synthesis taken by men gives opportunity for further unfoldment under law. Thus do men themselves control the progress of the plan. Each century and every 25 years of the century, we, the masters of wisdom, gather together to assess the success or otherwise of the many projects and plans which we have previously set in motion. In this way, we know how well certain plans are faring, and if not, can make the necessary adjustments and changes before harm is done. My masters work thus in their various centres, and through them proceeds the plan. My work is to organise the plans in such a way that the least cleavage results. Much that is loved must go. Cling not to the old forms. Much will depend on man's ability to renounce these outworn structures and to create new and simpler world. Remember this, forget not that I have come to change all things. It's from Maitreya, from the message number 74.
Well, there's a lot to follow up on that there. You talked about, the Master talked about their working through various centres. Is he referring to ashrams there?
Yes, well, he's really more, their focus is on economic and political, isn't it? And so I would hazard a guess that that's what it's become. The centres have shown up as centres of political will.
And commerce, centres of politics and commerce. Where are the masters that are back in war? Where are they situated? London, New York,
Darjeeling,
yes,
Rome,
Geneva,
Rome. Yeah, so they are energetic centres of the world.
And Sydney's a future one, isn't it?
Yeah, and so there is an element of the political, social, economic model in those centres. But I also think centres refers to individual human, right? Individual. So humanity is a centre.
Yes, yes.
When we talk about the Great Invocation, it's, what we call humanity is one of the centres.
That's right, and we're not the only one. I mean, the animal centre is equally important. The mineral, the vegetable. I mean, we're all concerned with the environment now.
And of course, we're a crucial player, the humanity, because we're between the lower kingdoms and the higher kingdoms.
Yeah, we are the.
There's a link there.
Yeah, we're the horizon between matter and spirit.
That's right.
Peter, I just want to pick up on something you said around the majority of people on the planet want peace. Right? So why we're not getting it?
Yeah.
So to all our listeners who believe you live in a democracy or you live in a democratic country or live on a democratic planet, well, if the majority of people want peace, why don't we have peace?
Because there's a rearguard action going on that it is even currently appears to be more powerful.
Yes. Yes, and is fighting a rearguard action. But when we look at the United Nations, and I can't remember the exact stuff, we did a program on it a while ago, 5 of the 6 permanent nations on the Security Council of the UN are 5 of the biggest arms dealers on the planet.
I know. It's absolutely absurd.
And why aren't we challenging that? Why? And this is where Maitreya talks about the voice of the people and that it's up to the people, because the power brokers do not want change.
Yeah.
They don't see the need for change. They have no other vision. So really change has to come from the people of this planet.
People.
We need to get rid of the veto is one of the things
exactly,
that the Masters
Peter.
say.
And Krem has talked about that why do we have this Security Council veto over everything that's going on, everything the United Nations wants to do? Because ultimately and in theory, the United Nations is the organisation where the voice of the people is found.
And can be heard.
But it's controlled by the member nations the permanent nations of the Security Council, whose business is selling guns.
Yes.
Does no one see the conflict of interest here? So we live in this mad planet, but it's driven by mad men. You know.
I just got another question for you, John, here. Peter was reading a message from the Master there where the hierarchy, the Masters, meet every 25 years.
Yeah, interesting.
They're due to meet next year, 2025.
Yeah.
They've got a lot to discuss.
Yes. Now, I was looking at The Blasphemy of War, which is out of the latest Share magazine, right? And I don't know if I've got time to read the whole thing out.
Yes, you have. Go for it, but that'll be what we need to finish on.
Okay, twice last century, the world was convulsed by total war. 2 terrible phases of one war, which cost humanity many millions of lives. Each was meant to be the war to end war. But still there are those who plot and plan for yet another trial of strength, with weapons of even greater destructiveness. How long, we must ask, will it take man to realise that war solves nothing, proves nothing, and adds only pain and loss to the peoples of earth? A major reason for the Master's return to the everyday world is precisely to remind men of this, to so influence their thinking that they turn away from war forever. So many nations today possess the nuclear bomb, the most destructive weapon ever conceived and built. That a future major war would be the ultimate horror, the complete destruction of life on planet Earth. For many millions of years, Earth would be a dead planet, a toxic waste. Men themselves would have to incarnate on some dark, far-off world and begin the long, long journey into the light. So, if a major reason for the Master's return to everyday world is to remind us of the folly of war, I said recently, is Gaza going to be an intervention, not an emergence? And you just said, Nigel, next year the Masters reconvene and have the opportunity to change the plan once again.
What is the difference between an emergence? You alluded to an emergence or perhaps intervention. Mm-hmm. Can you elaborate on that?
So the Masters, acting under the will of God and the plan of God, have the ability to change the plan, have the ability to reconfigure how they're going to operate. If we are pushed to the point, and we've discussed this before, that the destruction of the planet is on the table, then the Masters will intervene. And I'm wondering if Gaza, Peter, this great evil, as you so well described,
could be a tipping point.
Could be the tipping point. Because currently that small percentage of humanity that benefit from war does not want this to stop. Biden can't control it. Jeffrey Sachs has done another great article about, he believes the influence of Netanyahu and the Israeli pressure and influence in modern American politics, which maybe we should cover at another time.
Look, we've got 1 more minute, guys. Peter, you were from the article from the Master, there was a lot of references to the plan. Now, if somebody's just tuning into this program, this podcast for the first time, what is the plan? Now, it's esoteric. It's the ancient wisdom teachings, isn't it? That's where that reference comes from. Yep. What are they talking about, John?
They're talking about the evolution of all life on this planet everything evolves. Everything moves up. So that's what we're involved in. We're involved in the evolution of this planet.
So planet Earth needs to be spiritualised.
Yes.
We've chosen to be here.
Yes.
And this is our job to do it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And as John said on the last program, this is the playground or the classroom that we have chosen to grow and develop on.
Yeah.
We are individual aspects of the monad, the soul of God, and our job is to spiritualize matter. And we do that through our own bodies. Enlightenment. Enlightenment is light into the physical life.
And that spiritualisation on planet Earth doesn't just include the human kingdom.
No, it's all.
We're talking about the animal and the mineral kingdom as well, aren't we?
Yeah.
The Devic kingdom, which is even larger than human kingdom.
Yeah.
Which you talked about previously.
We have discussed devas. Wow.
Okay, we've been doing a bit of thinking over the last couple of programs. It's been good. Thank
I'm
you for
exhausted.
your... Yeah, thanks. You need a hot chocolate and a donut.
All this information can be found on the Share International website, www.share-international.org, and also don't forget the podcasts, which are available on the Plains FM website.
We welcome your comments, questions and feedback. Please contact us at emergencenews@gmail.com.